Hi, I'm Bill in Illinois 14, and you are listening to the podcast that has done more to save democracy than any other podcast in American history. Two Broads Talking Politics. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics. I'm here as usual with my co-host Sophie. Hey Sophie.
Hey Kelly.
And tonight we have on with us Alessandra Biaggi, who is running for the state senate in New York in District 34. Hi Alessandra.
Hi, how are you? Thank you both so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Can you start by just giving us a little bit of background about sort of where you're coming from and why you're running for the state senate now?
I would love to, but I want to start by also saying that it is 9:30 p.m. right now, and I'm just coming off of an 11-hour day canvassing in the district. So for anybody who's listening, campaigns are very hard work, and I've been absolutely knocking doors nonstop, and it just ended about 30 minutes ago. So that's just been a very long day. But anyway, back to the reason why I'm running. So I worked on the Clinton campaign. I was Secretary Clinton's Deputy National Operations Director, oversaw national operations, a budget of about $500 million and 38 state directors. And we were all very optimistic about the race, of course. And then at the end, unfortunately, when we lost, like many people, I thought to myself, okay, now what, right? And so I moved back home inside of District 34, where I am running for the state senate. And I created a civics curriculum. And I did this because what I was noticing was that people who, in my life and around me, who had never been excited or interested or cared about politics or government before, were asking me, what do I do? Should I march? Should I call my state senator? Should I call my congressperson? How do I get active here? Because it feels necessary to make a change. And so creating civics and teaching it in people's living rooms was one of the ways that I was able to at least fill one of the voids. And I did that for 4 months after the election. And then I had the opportunity to join Governor Cuomo's administration in his executive chamber counsel's office. So for those who are listening, the executive chamber is in the executive branch, and it consists, and the counsel's office specifically consists of many lawyers, all of whom oversee different agencies and have different portfolios. And as a young lawyer, I thought this was one of the best opportunities because this was the place that I could use my law degree to fight against Donald Trump. And so I received a women's issues and a healthcare portfolio. And one of the first bills that came to my desk was the Reproductive Health Act. In New York State, our abortion laws are in the penal code, not the health code. And so our abortion laws also predate Roe v. Wade. And the Reproductive Health Act would not only take abortion out of the penal code and put it into the health code, but it would make sure that Roe v. Wade was codified, that it was in our laws, that we would be protected, that all New York women would be protected. And it would also make sure that, we were actually up to speed in terms of the laws in New York State when it comes to abortion. Except that in New York, even though we're seen as this progressive beacon, what has been happening here is we've had 8 state senators we've all elected as Democrats who have been running as Democrats, who've been going to Albany to empower with Republicans and vote and caucus with Republicans. And the result has been blocked legislation. And one of the pieces of blocked legislation was actually the Reproductive Health Act. And so now we're living in a post-2016 world where we have Donald Trump is our president. And I'm sitting at my desk thinking to myself, how in the world in New York State do we not have Roe v. Wade codified? And how could we allow for Democrats to be empowering Republicans right now? I mean, ever really, but especially right now when Donald Trump is our president. So I thought long and hard about how to really combat that. And, my opponent has been my state senator for 14 years, almost half of my life. And I really think that we are not in a time to be not only rewarding that behavior, but we have to hold our leaders accountable, even if they're in the Democratic Party, because there is such a thing as bad Democrats. And what we've seen here in New York is that we've had these turncoat renegade Democrats just empowering the Republican Party in a way that has block legislation, not only from the Reproductive Health Act, but criminal justice reform and voting reform, making sure that our schools are fully funded in terms of public school funding, all the things that we care about as Democrats. We've had these people really betray us and take our vote. And so this is one of the ways that I felt like I could contribute at this time in New York. And so that's really why I'm running. And my campaign is very much grassroots. We are people-powered. We have no special interest that is funding us. There's no political machine behind us. And that's something that I'm very proud of, because a lot of people told me that this was impossible and, nobody would be with us. And now we're 9 months into this race. We have over 500 volunteers. We have a slate of endorsements from elected officials to labor unions and people who are really not only being politically courageous, but are seeing like this is not a time to be silent. The time right now is to stand up and make sure that we actually have a strong democracy, because one of the most important things we can do at the state level is have strong state laws against the federal government.
Your district overlaps with the 14th Congressional District, U.S. Congressional District, which people may be familiar with because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won the primary recently. So that might give us a little bit of a sense, but what are you sort of feeling on the ground? What does the energy feel like?
Yes, so I would love to start by just saying that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has endorsed our campaign. We were actually knocking doors just a few days ago, which was very exciting because the area of her district that overlaps with the area of my district is the eastern part of the Bronx. And this is an area where there is some pockets have high voter turnout, but generally it has not had very high voter turnout. And so in the aftermath of her election, what the result has been is we've seen people not only say, okay, these races are possible. It's really possible to be able to say, we're challenging the status quo. We're going to go up and make sure that we take our democracy back, but they have joined us. And so we saw a complete uptick in our volunteers, in our ability to raise more money. And it's been really exciting in a lot of ways. But on the ground, people are talking about this race in a really meaningful way. And that is why being out all day long and making sure that we are not only raising awareness, but connecting with voters and listening to them and making sure that they understand that we are definitely on the ground of the people, right? We are not trying to create any division between us, has been really very motivating and very exciting.
What are some of the issues that voters are talking to you about as you're going around to canvass? What are some of the things that they're really worried about or really wanting to talk to you about?
This is such a great question, and I think that the district that I'm running in is incredibly diverse. It is a gerrymandered district. It is a district where 1/3 of the population is Caucasian, 1/3 of the population is Latino, 15% is Black, about 7% is Asian. And no matter where you go in this district, whether you're in the Westchester portion or you're in the Bronx portion, what I have been seeing is that affordability is a massive problem, whether it's affordability for people to be able to stay in their homes because the rents have gone up and because tenants have not been protected in the state Senate through bills that really, quite frankly, it's a no-brainer to make sure that we close loopholes in law so that rents don't go up and we push people out of neighborhoods. These are things, unfortunately, that my opponent has not done. These are things that I'm prioritizing. Also, healthcare. A lot of people talk about their healthcare costs, and I have spoken to so many voters who have told me that they've had to make decisions between making a healthcare payment or a mortgage payment, and that should never be the case. Also, schools and public schools, we're in a district where every single child in every single zip code does not get access to the same education. And just for a general breakdown, this district includes parts of Westchester County, Pelham, and a little bit of Mount Vernon in a neighborhood called Fleetwood. And then in the Bronx, it's the majority of the district. So it's all of Riverdale, it is Kingsbridge, it is City Island, it is Hunts Point, it is Rikers Island, if you can imagine, Pelham Parkway, Pelham Bay. And it is very much a district of working class people who are just trying to get by. And the state Senate is poised in such a way that they can pass laws to make sure that the people of District 34 actually can have a higher quality of life. And so there is a massive struggle for affordability, really just no matter where you go. And I see that as an obligation for whoever is in this seat to prioritize because it affects people's lives every single day.
What is it like actually going out and canvassing and knocking on doors in the city? So I live in Chicago in a sort of highly populated region, and nobody's ever come and knocked on my door, or if they have, I've never answered.
Oh, no.
So, I don't know. Maybe they are. But we don't get like door knockers left or anything. So what does that look like actually canvassing in the city?
Yeah, so in terms of the way that most of the district is laid out, there are a lot of residential homes in the Westchester portion and also in the eastern portion, whether it's row houses or it is 2-family or 3-family homes. And so very much it's just walking up to somebody's door, doing the doorbell, and they answer the door. And in the beginning, I mean, I love to talk to voters, and also I could have a conversation with an inanimate object. So for me, it's not a challenge, but for some people it is. And so I get paired up with new volunteers sometimes so that they can see how I am talking to people. And generally what it is just, it's very quick at the door. Hi, I'm Alessandra Biaggi. I'm running for the New York State Senate in our district. I try to always establish the connection and say, I'm 4th generation in District 34. This is my home. My great-grandparents came here from Italy, and I try to also put the personal part of it first, because going to somebody's door and saying all the bad things that are going on is not the way that I ever want to approach anybody, honestly. And I don't think that anybody wants to be met with, all the problems that are happening. So I always try to do that first. And then I say, some of the things I'm fighting for, and I explain the issues. I talk a little bit about my background. And then I say, and I'm running against someone who has created this IDC group, which is a group of Democrats that have empowered Republicans for 7 years. And that is the moment where people will say, what? How is that possible? And I'll say, yes, it is. That's been going on. And in 2016, people woke up and they're now realizing. And especially because I'm a first-time candidate, and I'm sure that first-time candidates get this a lot, but people don't know me as much as they know my opponent. And so what I will say is, what I encourage you to do is to take a look online, right? The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and Business Insider have written about not only this race, but about the IDC and what's been going on. And, don't take my word for it. Take a look at what they've written in the newspaper. And that generally makes people say, whoa, okay, this is serious. I need to do my homework. I need to take a look. And it also, there's a little bit of concern on people's faces because they feel like they've been betrayed. So the door-to-door interactions are the most effective way, really, to talk to voters. But canvassing also includes, walking in the streets, walking by businesses as people are coming out in different neighborhoods, and then really understanding, because each neighborhood and area is so different and has such different problems, that understanding the issues of the district, and it's not just the legislative stuff. It's the bus doesn't come, right? Like the BX5 doesn't come to some areas, and people are really mad about it, and we want to make sure that the bus comes, or the BX10 rather. It doesn't come as frequently as it should, and the Woodlawn station, there's only one train every hour, and that's really disruptive for people's lives. So it's really like having the boots on the ground and understanding and listening is a big part of it. But it sounds like, you could sit at somebody's door for 30 minutes. Really, all of this happens in about a matter of 3 to 5 minutes, and 5 minutes at the most, and then you're on to the next door. The hardest part is that at least for me, I go to every single person's door, and I want to bring a 10 out of 10 energy, because I don't want to bring different energy to different people, right? Like lower energy, you won't interact as much. That is, as a candidate, that takes a lot out of me, emotionally, also just energetically. And that's something that I wasn't necessarily mentally prepared for. But it is definitely one of the most challenging and rewarding experiences doing that out of this whole campaign so far.
You had mentioned the New York Times. You are actually endorsed by the New York Times. You're endorsed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as you had mentioned. You're also endorsed by about 1 million indivisible groups, about 1 million groups of Democrats, by Our Revolution, which is Bernie Sanders' group. You have by Planned Parenthood. You have a huge number of endorsements. So I'm wondering if you could talk just a little bit about sort of what those endorsements mean to you, and sort of how you managed to get so many.
So I would love to talk about this, and it's primarily because I cannot emphasize to both of you enough how in the beginning of this race, almost every single person, except for my family and very close friends, told me that I was absolutely crazy to be in this race, that nobody would endorse me, that I wouldn't raise any money, I would be all alone. And that was actually pretty scary because I took this big leap of faith, but I also was taking this action on the belief in not only myself, but in the belief that there is something really wrong with our community. We're not being represented appropriately. And I believe so deeply in making this right that like nothing can stand in my way. And so that was the